To tune in this evening to this live stream. We do it every Sunday night, 11 p.m. Central European Time, straight out of Amsterdam. Again, I'm Mike McWilliams, your host here on the channel. I want to thank you first and foremost for taking your time. Time is a valuable thing. For you to spend a little bit of yours with me is always going to be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm checking out my image here today. It's looking good. I'm wearing my glasses, and yeah. I can't find my glasses cleaner. I thought I would clean my lens here as well, but actually, it doesn't look that bad. Looks clear enough. Works enough. We'll go with this. How's everybody doing out there? Mr. Bogfoot, Mr. Watson, good to see you guys. While we wait for more people to show up here in the chat, we shall chat about a few things. I have been contemplating, my guitar collection. I don't have very many, as you know, but it's always strange. You always have more than you think you do. It's the weirdest thing. Matty Two Hats in the house. How you doing? Welcome, sir. Good to have you back here, sir. Good to see you. It's the weirdest thing, man, because you're like, I don't have that many, and then you start, digging around. And you're like, well, I've got a few more than I thought I had, and it's funny. Those are the it's weird. Those are the ones that stick around for some reason or another, and at the end of the day, those are the ones that get played. It's really weird. I've always desired, as you guys know, I have a strong love to one of these days get one of these Japanese vintage imports for myself. Still haven't come across one yet. Although I have to say, there have been a few this year, and I'm still editing the video to show off a few this year. I'm going to put out a video showing the best guitars I had this year. But yeah, it's just funny to me how it works out. Like, for example, I brought this out the other day. This Harley Benton DC, what do they call it? DC or something like custom, DC custom, double cut custom out the other day. Just use as a prop to make a point, and I plugged it in the other day, and I forgot I put these new pickups in it. These are pretty nice, and I have forgotten just about every detail about these pickups. I realized I can't remember the name of the company. I I can't remember too much about them. I know that they're P90 types, not exactly P90s. They're like humbucker they're shaped like P90s, something like that. But I just love the sound of this, and it's weird um, that this guitar ended up being one of those guitars that just stuck around. I had actually at one point put it up for donation. I wanted to try to get it in the hands of some, student or somebody out there, but that didn't work out. And I ended up putting a new set of pickups in it, doing a few other modifications, and boy, it's just here to stay. It's just funny how that worked out, and I'm completely happy with it too. KZ in chat, hey now to yourself. Good to have you here. Welcome to the Upstairs to Ride Music channel this evening. Well, we got enough people here in the live stream for me to get on with this. First of all, guys, I want to put this link here over to Scott's channel. Scott's doing a pretty funny series. Just he's doing a he's how do I want to put this? Not funny, but he is putting out a breadth of content. Let me put it that way. And I am amazed by his energy. I don't have the energy to put and film that much stuff, but Scott is like a machine. And he's got his 12 channels of Cheersmas that he's put up, and this is the link for that. Once you guys all go over to Scott's channel and check that out, and he's talking about other channels that he likes, and so therefore that gets you to check out those channels as well. See how that works. Brilliant idea on Scott's part. Actually, I've never heard anybody do anything like it before. It's a great idea. A great idea. So, guys, hit that link up and go over there and check that out. I have the similar look and mannerism of the great Barack Obama. Not Tiger Woods. I thought with the hat, maybe, I could do Tiger Woods. Yeah, that's funny, man. That's hilarious. It's kind of funny, guys. Um, Tonight, I want to talk about an observation that I made this week. And as always, you know, I try to write about things for these scripts about subjects that really resonate with me because I can't talk about something if it just doesn't really hit me or get to a space in my head where I find it interesting enough to sit down and write a script for. But tonight's was quite different. Actually, I wrote the script for this one on Friday because on Friday it all started to come to me as I was going out and about, and I came home, particularly after visiting a local shop, and I'm going to give the link to that shop here at the end of this. Um, I th- I just started to say to myself, you know what? I'm starting to get a little bit more concerned about the guitar market, more concerned about it than I kind of thought that I would be for a long time now. A long time now. I've been talking about that snowball, that avalanche of used gear and the effects that that was going to have on the market. But I, of course, don't have a crystal ball. And I didn't take into account all of I always talked about the perfect storm, the gathering together of different forces that could have a negative impact. But I had no idea that there would be so many all at once. It actually honestly puts me in mind that it seems planned actually in some ways. I'm not saying that it is. It has a whiff of that to it. So therefore I found it interesting. I thought I would talk about it tonight. The state of of the guitar market and why it feels different now than it has before. Um yeah, dig that. Um but I don't want to come across as a rant with this. This isn't doom scrolling or anything like that. It's just me expressing a little bit more deeper concern than I think I have in the past. I've been rather flippant about it. And not flippant, but not seriously concerned. But of course, when it starts to affect your personal bottom line, then of course it starts to get a little bit more attention. And there have been a couple of things this week that hit me at once on Friday. The first one was KDH and a few others have gone and done YouTube videos about the pending possible closure of Hofner Guitars. We'll get into that into a minute. But they entered something called insolvency proceedings. And I'll talk a little bit more in detail about what that means. But that's the first thing. Because Hofner, wow. The second thing was I visited a local guitar shop, and I was stunned. This is a guitar shop that I've been doing business with for quite a while now. I've sold them a couple of guitars that I've imported in. And I went down there with another that I had in mind for them. And was met with the realization upon looking at all the sales signs on the front door, a numerous amount of them, and going into the shop and talking to the owner, who said that if things continue the way that they are, he actually only has about 3 to 4 months left before they have to close up. And when shops like that close up, they don't close up, reorganize, and come back. They're gone for good. KZ in chat. About a decade ago, I could remember small guitar music stores opening all around Boston. Not many left. Yeah, we're going to talk about that tonight. And this is a client of mine, so that means that that's yet another avenue of mine of mine to go down to do business that is potentially looking at being gone for good. And these are people that I've spent time to develop relationships with. Of course, um, they have their own families and concerns involved in that as well. So it's a heavy thing. And therefore, again, to talk about it in theory is one thing. Um, the nuclear bomb, the atomic bomb, looked great on the chalkboard, but it wasn't until they set one off that they realized exactly how bad, of a thing it really was. Merry Christmas to you, music companion. How you doing? Good to have you in the chat. So those two things really kind of shook me a little bit this week. You know, this shop, same people, nice people, same walls full of really great guitars, and just no customers really. And they had a vintage, what is that? The smaller model, 325 model, which in natural for 325 euros. Uh, the double cut, 325. I guess that's what it is, a smaller model. But anyway, and it's actually a great guitar, and a few others I saw in there that are really great as well. But the guy said they just have a few months left, and that's just really 339. Thank you very much, Scott. Yeah, the 339. Beautiful, natural, a vintage, so from vintage guitars, and just a beauty, just a beauty. Hofner, you automatically think about Paul McCartney and his bass. I imported a Japanese 70s Tokai copy of a Hofner bass for a client, the violin bass. Um, it's just vintage European, it's just like Gibson, to tell you the truth, it has a long history to it. And to hear that it's gone into insolvency hearings is interesting, to say the least. 130 plus years old, Hofner is. Just like I said, it has the same kind of um, of history of that Gibson has, and it's really fine European work that they put into those instruments, and they're great instruments. But the truth of the matter is that these were mid-price instruments at the end of the day. They weren't the really expensive ones, nor they were the cheaper ones. They were the mid-price range. And I talked about in the last live stream that it seems to me that the range of guitars that is suffering the most in this marketplace is the mid-range guitars. It wasn't a boutique luxury item either. Certainly wasn't mass marketed. And it just fell in that middle space where the pressure is the highest. And so that's, one of the things that really made things difficult for them to operate. Catch up here in the live chat. There were even more opportunities for people to open their own businesses. It seems now very impossible for an average guy to get loans to opening a brick and mortar business, KZ says. Yeah, in these kind of economic tightening where credit tightens, certainly it's even more difficult. At a time when you would want to loosen credit to try to stimulate things, it's weird. Things are super ultra loose in the good times, and then when you really need it, it tightens up. I think tariffs aside, Map heard small shops, Guitar Center can sit on 100K of unsold Les Pauls, Ma and Paul can't. Also, yeah, without any question, it's affected my business, as I told you guys. I have to focus more on the consulting side of my business than the guitar importing side now, because it's just a market that every day, as I said, it's drying up, and the issue with the tariffs and the cost of shipping, especially this time of year, is playing a great deal of a part of that problem that I'm seeing. I'm not going to slow it or stop it completely, like a lot of guys that do similar kind of things that I do. I've seen. However, it is going to slow to a trickle until that day comes where I see that it may be advantageous to take more inventory on. But right now, it is a risk that I can't hold. I don't want to carry that kind of inventory. I don't want to carry the cost. And as was just pointed out here, mom and pop shops also don't want to carry that as well. Um, Maddie says the shop I work with has been there since 1986. Somehow we are hanging on. The big boys and direct to consumer model is closing in though. Yeah, my mid-sized customers shops that I sell to, they're hanging in there. So I could quite imagine that yours as well. The smaller shops and the private dealers, no, no, it's tough. It's tough, and things are moving really really slow. There's also a 337 P90, 330 but smaller. I've never seen one myself. Scott says, yeah, 339 was what I was thinking. That was it. The vintage 339 in natural. What a beautiful. Didn't get a chance to plug it in, but that's the kind of guitar that I would want to have in retirement. You seriously, because it covers a lot of bases. It's part of the monopolization that is happening at the very top, capitalism. Well, certainly, I'm not here as a cheerleader or as a naysayer of capitalism. It has its pluses and minuses like any other economic system. However, um, it's better than socialism. But however, it's more than that. We're going to talk about that. Frederick popped in here somewhere. I didn't see. Knock McClellan is here. Hello, sir. Merry Christmas to you. Merry Christmas. It's a local established guitar shop closes down in your area, then no bank will look at your business plan for a loan. Yeah, absolutely. The tariffs too. A lot of the stuff is manufactured outside the states, and the plan and the program of the tariffs all along was to force American companies that were doing business outside to close down shop and to relocate to the United States, where of course they will receive subsidies in order to make up for those relocations. But they're doing business. So Epiphone, quite honestly, I always said that the possibility of it moving to a place like India or ramping up its production in Southeast Asia would be something. However, They may be pressured. There may be a day where Epiphone goes back to the United States and is just made in the States because of that. It may be too attractive of a business offer to them, but I cannot imagine what the cost of an American Epiphone would be. I'm talking about their entire production line, just not special ones. Lone Star Guitar Shop, that is, yeah. I've always fancied the acoustic sound all over, so a good acoustic guitar I could appreciate. Yeah, that's why I said a semi-acoustic like that 339 would cover a lot of bases. If it has a good resonance to it, um, then you kind of play it as a type of acoustic, and of course you could plug it in and take the benefit of the pickups. But that would be a good retirement guitar. See, I'm thinking retirement guitars now. It's gotten bad, guys. I've gone in a downward spiral in terms of worrying about my age. Um, no, under German law, when you file for insolvency, this doesn't mean that the doors are shut and it's locked and it's gone tomorrow. It offers them a temporary protection, um, allows them the chance to do some restructuring, and also the most important and key part of this, it gives them the opportunity to search for investors. So it may be a question out there, would a BlackRock of the world be interested in buying a company like Hoffman? Because of course, that would be the type of company that would be at this moment, at this juncture in time, that have the liquidity in order to do something like that. So, you know, all of this has come across them, of course, because their cash flow has dried up and their orders are slow. And the costs due to what, all the costs that go involved and all the moving parts to make those instruments have obviously risen to the point where it's caused them to become basically insolvent, you know. And this is not, of course, the signs of a good business, a business that's stable. Um, some businesses can climb out of this by, of course, like I said, restructuring. Some businesses can climb out if they find new capital flow, but unless they deal with the bleed off, that's just going to be money that's going to go down the drain as well. So you see the position that they're in, you know. Mike, have you ever used a Charlie Christian pickup? No, but I'm familiar with. I'd like to. Ben says, Maddie, okay, capitalism's absolutely the best system so far. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Don't let anybody ever fool you or tell you otherwise or trick you otherwise. Of course, that's another story. Brian May guitars should bid for Hofner or Epiphone where they can make the violin bass anyway. Yeah, it's again, do they have the liquidity in order to do something like that? And again, you have to identify where is the crack, where is the money hemorrhaging from, and is it something that is systemic? Is it something that can be repaired? Funny you say BlackRock, Casey says. I believe they got a bad rep for doing great business and in some instances keeping industries afloat. Yeah. Again, one way or the other, this is the type of company that would have the liquidity. They are the bank in order to make a deal like that happen. And so, therefore, don't be surprised if you hear an announcement. If they do come through this insolvency, it will be a company similar to that. Although, then again, you know, there are other political aspects to that as well. So, we'll see. Kieran says, do I have your blessing to go touch myself? Dozo. That's a funny one, man. You cracked me up. Hey, by Hoffner. Day one. Fire Paul McCartney. That's a good one too. Music companion. I highly recommend everyone here buy a few Motor City pickups out of Michigan or Van Zandt out of Texas. Yeah, I can second that, guys. I think, you know, pickups are the unsung heroes. If you got a guitar already and you're good with the guitar, then really the thing that you can do to change that is the pickups, or at least buy as many pickups as you can. This might be a time to pick up sets of pickups, and even if you don't have a guitar to put it in, just have them laying around. Lamb chops. Hello. Got recommended this by YouTube randomly, where every now and then they kick me a bone. Is the title implying a positive negative effect? Is it a scalping thing? I'm fried as hell. Well, welcome to the welcome to the chat here, where the majority of us are pretty fried, so you're not in a bad group. We're frying right along with you. It's I'm saying that it is turning into an interesting thing, a different thing. I'll get into a little bit more detail if you hang on here. Come on, he needs your blessing, Mike. I wasn't sure if that it was Kieran. Oh, Kieran. Yeah, Kieran, and that sounds that no man. No man. You need to go see your priest and say a couple of Hail Marys over that one. Get the Padre to pray over you. Wait a minute. Never mind. I'm not gonna go there. That may have not been the direction to send you in, Kieran, depending upon your age. Scalping to me is relatively a new thing. Yeah. Anthony, how you doing, man? Oh, you guys are cracking me up tonight. Well, the big picture is this. If a brand like Hofner is struggling, then what does it say about smaller builders? And that in line, and that in mind, what does that say about regional distributors? What does that say about local shops? You know, it's hard to imagine. See, this is the weird thing to me. Maybe you guys can help me out because I can't figure it. My C plus grade average brain is not allowing me to figure this one out. But uh, during the pandemic, everybody really had bread because they were giving it out. We're suffering from that now. Nothing's free. But everybody was buying guitars. This is in conjunction with a period in music history where, quite frankly, the guitar is not really a featured instrument in composition or in arrangements anymore. And yet, everybody started picking up the guitar. And it's a weird thing to me because you're being told now that the reason people aren't buying guitars is because, of course, the music isn't featuring guitars in composition or arrangement anymore like they used to. But again, there seemed to be an interest in the guitar out there, at least during COVID, when somebody gave you $100 and said, "Here, sir, buy whatever you like with it." That's a weird one, guys. That is a paradox that I cannot figure out. So I'll let you guys chew upon that in the chat. Maybe you can come up with an answer to that one. But that post-pandemic demand correction hit us. and the raised manufacturing costs because of the tariffs hit us. This is that I told you there is a lot of factors that cause this situation that I was talking about. I always said that post pandemic buying spree correction was going to be that snowball. That's the snowball that I was talking about. I had no idea that snowball had a nuclear fission bomb in the center of it. uh, the tariffs, manufacturing costs, interest rates have gotten higher. Um, People are reducing their discretionary spending, to say the least. And the manufacturers in their vault of wisdom said, hey, investors, look how much we did during COVID. We need more money so that we can increase our production so we can make more guitars, because obviously, you know there's a demand there. It was an artificial demand that was used in order to create an artificial manufacturing in order to prop up the bottom end of these companies so they could keep going. It was really based on spurless data, because that was a bump. That was a historical anomaly that had great implications today, not positive ones. A lot of gear was bought by people who no longer needed it or no longer have the money as well. And this is the thing that kind of bothers me about. Let me catch up here in the chat before I move on to that thought. Hit the like, guys. Thank you for joining us. Jump in the chat. Thank you, Scott. God bless you for saying that. Hello to you, Turbo Herring. Welcome, sir. If anyone would support Mike, check out his music on Bandcamp. Thank you, man. That's funny. I was just about to put that up at the end of the chat to say that, if you guys really want to help and support me, even if if you can buy a single, buy an album, do that for me this Christmas season. I would appreciate it. Give it, then you can send it off to a friend. Do that if you can. I know for a fact YouTube channels promoting and endorsing counterfeit name brand guitar sales in the past 15 years. I don't think people realize how damaging it has been. If you can't afford a real, some would say that the Tokais, by the way, I would say would fall in that category. However, it's it's even now, if you just casually look at channels that are built upon the premise of showing you the guitar of the week or the pedal of the week, or this, that, or other doohickey of the week, their views are down. Their views are down. And um, my views and my subscriptions, actually, though it's a snail's pace, but they are going up. I haven't had a down month, even in this climate, and even with me not having, just barely under 3,000, 3K subscribers, I've seen an uptick, because channels like mine who are talking about things and trying to guide and steer people through this seems to be more valuable. So there is that too. Do you sell physical CDs, Mike? It's funny, guys. I am going to start selling physical CDs, I've decided. I have the ability to burn CDs myself, and I already own the artwork. And what I'm thinking about doing is setting up a shop here in conjunction with my YouTube channel, where you can buy physical CDs. I thought about albums, but I just think that the more economical and the one that I can do here myself, um, burn the CDs of the copies of my albums and sell those myself. Send them out to you. Set up a like a, not a Patreon, but something where some kind. I'll have to look into it because I'm not clear on that. Set up a web shop where you can order it and I can send it to you. Yeah, I'll sign every CD. If no, it's not a if. I'm going to do this. For every CD that goes out the door, you buy it, I'm going to sign it. I think the first one that I'm going to burn, of course, and do a physical version of is the last one. Um, I think that I'll do that, and then I might go backwards with them. But yeah, I'm going to do that because that's a sales channel. I used to do that, and that's the old model anyway. People used to dub. I knew a guy who had an apartment building back in the early 90s, and he had nothing but a whole rack of cassette players because people would come to him and pay them to dub their tapes, their mixtapes, and then they would go out and sell those out of the trunk of their cars or whatever. If we're going back to that, I'm fine with that because I grew up with that. That, and that's something that that I'm good with. So yeah, that's something that's funny you should mention that, man. You're really reading my mind because I've decided that that's something that I want to do. So I am going to sell physical CDs. Cassettes I can do. That's too archaic of a medium for me, but I understand why people want to do that. Number inside the first 100 or so might be pretty neat. I'll buy for sure. Thank you guys. In that case, with that kind of encouragement, I'm going to do it. um, because I'm always talking about physical things, and yet I'm dwelling in this realm of the non tangible, and I don't want to be a contributor to that. I think I'm going to be a contributor going the other way. So this year coming up, I am going to set up a shop, and definitely, I'm going to do two. As a matter of fact, I'm going to try to do two. One, for the last album, the latest album, and I want to go back to the deep end because, quite frankly, the deep end is my favorite of my 7 albums. That's my favorite one. That's my favorite one. I'm gonna do jewel case with it if I can. I'm gonna have to because slipcover cost of that with the printing, it gets a little tricky. Jewel cases, you can do a single print with the artwork on the front, maybe titles and information on the back of that. And then on the back of that, you can do a fold over in there. There's a couple of things. I used to do it. I used to sell them, as you guys know, um, for my live shows. So when I was in Tokyo, I was burning CDs of my albums. And at my live show, after I played the show, I'd be in the back selling those CDs. So I'm going back to that. Again, this is nothing new for me. So I'm going to do it. Double slip covers are nice. We'll see. It's gonna Yeah, we'll see. But I'm not gonna make it cheap because I want to make it worth the cost. I don't want it to be cheap either. But then again, I want it to be affordable as well. Um, you know, I saw no foot traffic in that shop, and it got me to thinking about Hoffner. Brands can restructure. BlackRock is not going to step into a mom and pop shop situation. Local shops, they can't. They're just left hanging. The margins are thin as they are. And in order to stay open, you have to be moving a certain amount of instruments. You can calculate that quite easily. And rent doesn't care about a slow quarter. That's why, I never had, and that brick and mortar is something that was a risk to me because I saw down the line that, you know, you better have something super special to get people coming through your door when they can stay at home and do it all with a click in their PJs, you know. And there are fewer, and I cannot say this anymore. This again, getting back to that paradox that puzzles me, is there are fewer beginner players walking in these days. So that interest of guitar, I said that, there's interest now, but it's not as strong as it was. And it's starting to actually peter off. So maybe the music did finally catch up to people's. I don't know. I don't understand that paradox, but nevertheless, fewer beginner players are walking into these stores. And when a shop closes, it just disappears. You know, I've seen downturns in the 90s. I saw the 2008 downturn. Um, we're going through this correction now. It feels different. It feels different because, again, you have to factor in the fact that there are fewer, guitarists, bassists, drummers, you know, keyboarder players. And this gets back to the live venue, the lack of live venue. See, it's an ecosystem. You know, I'll have to put $1 in the jar for every time I mention Star Wars. But again, it's that symbiotic relationship that's mentioned in Star Wars between the Jedi and the midichlorians, for example. Boy, we're going into Nerdville tonight. But it was the same symbiotic relationship that occurred with the clubs, the bands that played in those clubs, the music shops and other auxiliary shops that supported those clubs and those bands, and in some cases gave members of that band employment as well and a healthy discount. But when you take one or more of those, or even one of those things out of that symbiotic relationship, then that relationship ends up being destroyed. And there are more bedroom players. They're all on YouTube now, but there are fewer community players because there's fewer places in the community for them to play. And gear culture shifted from a need to have to a content driven nature. Do you understand the distinction between those two? You need to have, you know, a good guitar that stayed in tune, that that you bonded with, that you got the opportunity to really do some serious, damage with, right? In a nightclub situation with your band. The big difference between that and you needing a guitar for this week's, content on YouTube. And when guitar culture shifted from that kind of need to being content driven, it wasn't a positive thing. A lot of guitar gear now exists to be photographed, not played. Isn't it pretty? It sure does video so nice. But it's like the hard rock cafeification when wide widestream when hog wild out there. Everybody's got their guitar in a glass case now, and we're sitting around eating spaghetti, looking at it. We're not playing it, or burgers, or whatever the hell they sell at that place. Actually, I went to the Hard Rock Cafe. I got a Hard Rock Cafe. I would say it's about a 10-minute walk here from my place. And I went there once and I sat down and I ordered a bacon burger and I couldn't fit that bacon was the saltiest bacon I ever. It was like eating a cow's salt lick. I I was in a cave that was made of pink Himalaya salt in the Himalayas, and that bacon was saltier than that room. I was in a real salt cave. Seriously, I'm not kidding you guys. The whole thing was made of Himalaya pink salt. It was a cave. It was a huge room, and that bacon was saltier than that room. But I digress. It's just funny to me about this change from a need of the gear to needing it, for content. Where are we at? Catch up here in the chat. But there is no shortage of 7-year-old kids playing Master of Puppets. I never got the whole Master of cover song guitars on YouTube. Yeah, yeah, that's a weird one to me too. Guitar has a 90% quit rate before the first year. Yeah, Maddie, absolutely. And that 10%, we talked about that 10% is whatever guitar manufacturer is living off of, eating off of. And even that 10% now, and when that 10% is not hungry and doesn't want what your wares, you're in trouble. Um, most people, Scott says, don't realize that in most cases, playing an instrument is a lifelong commitment that has no end goal. Yeah, yeah, there really is none. Unless you're Keith Richards, who finally reached his end goal. I guess I'm jaded from knowing people who work with rock stars and thought they were a hot spit with their own bands. Yeah, man. Another thing, super digression, guys. Sorry, but it just popped in. I wanted to mention it to you because we talked about the fact that what's his name from the Eagles, not just the Eagles, he was also in the James Gang, is selling his guitars. And somebody pointed out to me, and I thought it was brilliant. They said, yeah, man, these cats are selling their guitars because they're starting to realize that the generation that would be interested in buying those guitars and actually paying that price is slowly dying away. So you better sell it now. Joe Walsh knew it would come to me. Joe is selling his guitars now because, quite frankly, another 10 years, maybe even 5 years or 10 years, really seriously, he's not going to, yeah, no, even with Joe Walsh at that level, no, you're not going to he'll get a little less. He'll get some, but he'll get a little less every year that goes on. And that's the truth of it. I found that to be brilliant. I said, yeah, you know what? That actually makes sense why all these guys are selling their gear because they're starting to realize we better sell this now while there's somebody who really wants to pay top dollar for it. Just a thought. Digression, but a thought. Um, Music is enough for a lifetime. A lifetime is not enough for music. Yeah, very good. Well put. Well put. Phineas Henshaw. Phineas, how are you doing, sir? Good evening to you. So glad to have you here. Yeah. So this culture that we've created, this culture gear driven content culture is not a positive thing, you know. And also, the average age of the YouTube content creator is skews more towards the middle, not the younger. And really, manufactured or not, even the guys at Tavistock had the good sense to know that it was youth that spawned this energy, this creative explosion. And also, if we go back historically, there was a limit of tools. I've always talked about that. Your favorite guitar heroes had shittier guitars than you can imagine when they were growing up, if at all. And the limitation of tools played a big part of that as well. It was something to have a guitar. Oh man, you got a guitar. Jimmy down the street got a guitar. It's just like back in the 80s, like, the Johnsons have an Atari 1200. Let's go over there and play. It was something. Now everybody's got an Atari 1200 in their house, and everybody's got a guitar. Even people who don't play guitar has a guitar in their house. They're like, you know, so the limitations of the tools played a part of that. And as I've told you before, there was gatekeepers, so access to record was a lot harder, which is why a lot of people, when the 4-track Porter, the TAC Porter Studio came out, that was a revelation. You know, there are some albums that were actually recorded on a 4-track TAC that, believe it or not, blows my mind to this day. You know, and those guys historically weren't online. Could you imagine the Beatles, sitting on their iPhones, backstage at the Cavern in Hamburg, and it's saying, "Hey, I see that the Guitar Center has a sale on the Les Paul specials. Yeah, man, let's get a couple of those." Could you imagine that? They weren't; those guys weren't shopping. They were backstage. Okay, guys, we're going to go to A, and then we're going to C minor, and then John, you come in. They were they were playing, they were writing, they were crafting, they weren't buying. You know, and that's the truth of it. And that's a whole different scene. Young, energetic, focused, hungry. Music Companion says, if we were to do a top 10 pedal of each effect for an essential pedal board, you would be able to mix and match one of each effect and tune to your taste and be done forever. If that makes sense. Yes, we've talked about that. I agree. Thailand Guitar Works, welcome. Better late than never. So glad to have you here, man. Good to have you here. Welcome, welcome. What is the name of this guy here that's talking? Matthew says. He looks familiar, but I don't know who he is. Yeah, he's a weirdo, man. I wouldn't listen to him. The guy talking, never mind the never mind the voice behind the mirror. How you doing, man? Welcome to the chat. The Beatles ended up with Rolls Royces. Exactly so. They weren't sitting back, shopping on their phones. They were doing their thing that went towards what got them those Rolls Royces. You know, it's this. The point I'm making is that that when you have infinite choice and infinite comparisons, you know, if you can dig that, what that ends up creating is infinite paralysis too. You know, and also less urgency. I cannot stress this enough that the most important guy in the studio was the clock on the wall, because every minute that ticked by represented X amount of dollars. But when you got a laptop and some speakers and some plugins and this, that, and the other, and you could sip your coffee in your PJs and sit down and say, "Hey, I'm going to play a couple licks of this. Okay, I've done enough for today," and move on. Then this is less urgency. And sometimes because you're like, "Oh, I want to do this solo on that track, but I'm going to wait till next month when that new PV pedal comes out, because boy, that would be great for that solo," even though you have no idea what it really sounds like in conjunction with your rig. More hesitation, more waiting for the perfect thing. And, you know, there's that. The Danish philosopher Soren Kierkegaard talked about the dizziness of too much possibility. Yeah, that's like that thought is very similar along the lines to my favorite book by Kudinsky, Kudins, the unbearable lightness of being. That's the thought behind that, of between lightness and heavy, infinite lightness and infinite heaviness. It's the same kind of thought, and these these infinite choices lead to paralysis, in my opinion, or they can. Lowell, you're not a real filmmaker until you have a real film running at $100 per minute. You don't waste real film doing junk. Yeah, again, that'll do it. So I'm not saying that you need to stop buying gear. I'm not saying that you should sell everything either. I'm not saying that you should panic hoard vintage instruments. I do think that these are days where, what you really should do, and let me see if I can find that. Why didn't I get that card so that I have that information here before I got started? I do not know, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm going to try to do it live here. Damn it. For my next live stream, because I really do want to mention this guitar shop and put up a link for them. And I don't want to take the time right now to find it. Um, you know, Supporting shops is important, and really having a intentional situation awareness. Yeah, an intentional mindset when you're purchasing things. Learn to value repair, setup, and maintenance. I now have the tools that I need to set up any instrument that I need to, and to do certain repairs. I can do fret work, I can do dent repairs, I can do paint repairs, things of that nature. I have everything I need to do to take a guitar and to make it nice. And I've been teaching myself the skills in order to do those things. And I think those skills are important for everybody out there, because they're, maintaining what you have and is actually one of the best things that you can do. Play what you own. It's the healthiest thing that you can do for the market, is to actually use the instruments that you own. You know, Music isn't dying, creativity isn't dying, playing isn't dying, but there is going to be a point where there's going to be fewer brands. Consolidation is occurring. Uh, there's going to be smaller runs of guitars. The manufacturers are going to start really reducing the runs of certain guitars that they do. And I hope that this leads to less excess, because, again, they're making a new guitar right now as I speak, dozens of them. And I walked into a shop yesterday and they can't sell the ones that are already there. And it is a great concern of mine. If you think back of that video of Gibson taking that tow truck and rolling over those guitars, I see a lot of this stuff ending up in the landfill at some point. Market shrinks, it doesn't disappear. There'll still be stores out there to certainly buy guitars, but those will be the larger stores, not the smaller mom and pop shops. And there'll be fewer guys like me who will be interested in dealing with the small margins in order to deal on a small scale. So certainly these are the people that you need to try to support as much as you can at this point, because there will come a day when they're gone, they're gone. Smaller scenes survive downturns better than bloated ones. Pay attention, support what matters to you and the shops that matter to you. And certainly, absolutely, you should be, if you're a YouTube, content creator, then the time that you're scrolling, or even a viewer, not even creative, you just, you speak, if you're a musician, you should be spending more time playing than scrolling. Because as I pointed out, the Beatles or the Rolling Stones or Zeppelin weren't backstage, looking at Tamu in between sets. It just didn't happen, and they're lucky they didn't have those kind of distractions. And so, play more than you scroll and keep that in mind. Knowledge is power. Yep. All AI music is just a second coming of disco, truth be told. It's an interesting take, music companion. It's gonna take local live music to make a difference. Yeah, I understand what you mean. But even with disco, you had live bands playing it. Everybody seems to think that disco was a DJ driven thing. That's not true, because even Kiss, you know, had a disco song. Uh, I could the Stones had a disco song. Uh, Gosh, I could go down the list of all those. Everybody, Rod Stewart, all those guys had a disco song, and they had bands that had to play it. If you wanted to hear Kiss play their disco song, then well, at least that was a band playing it, and that still influenced some kid to go out there and learn how to play it on bass for some reason. I wish I had a Firebird X. Yeah, that's the one that they rolled over. So I just I just fear the future where a lot of these guitars become Firebird X's because nobody wants them. The value of something is only what the market says it is. And right now, the market is saying that all of these guitars, especially in the mid category, is overpriced. The same thing happened to saxophones in the late 2000s. It was flutes. It's guitar's turn now. It is, you know, that's that's an interesting thought there. True was all little people in trays of blow backstage at Led Zeppelin shows, not a phone inside. Yeah, you had your dealers, you had your managers, your groupies, and your hangers on, your roadies, your technicians, and the cops. But not a cell phone in sight, indeed. Not a cell phone in sight. And the various, because every city that Led Zeppelin went to, there was a guitar dealer there too. Like, hey Jimmy, I got this guitar. Take a look at this. And that's why Peter Grant had cash on him, because they always had to have a certain amount of cash on them in case Jimmy wanted to buy a guitar. Something came around that they needed to buy, and that's what led to the great cash robbery that occurred in New York. Did they ever find out who stole that money? I always thought it was Peter Grant, inside job, but maybe I'm wrong. There's a legit Firebird X on Reverb right now. Seller's also taking offers. I'm sure he is. Hey man, once your guitar has gotten the reputation of the one that got rolled over by a tractor trailer truck, it's just, there's no coming back from that. That Firebird will not rise from the ashes. Going for 4K. Again, the price of guitar will reflect only that with the market demand. And there is no demand out there at 4K for a Firebird X. Sorry. I wish I had a free Firebird X Scott corrects. Yeah. So, you know, the state of the guitar market is what it is. There's again a confluence of factors that are making it. It's not just one thing or the other. It's a lot of things. None of them are good. But I do believe that if you can enjoy, like I said, what you have and work with that, then you're 50% ahead of the game because none of this really matters anyway. You're good. You're out. I started this out by saying this live stream out by talking about my guitar collection, that I always have more than I thought that I had. And it's funny to me. It's true. I've got guitars enough for myself to do what I need to do, the very little that I plan to do going forward. But when I reach for a guitar because I want to play, I still want one to be there. And if you're there, that's probably, a good place to be, whether it's one or 20. Just as long as you're reaching for them and you're not reaching for the camera or the microphone in order to talk about them more than you're playing them. So there's that. Again, not a doom and gloom thing. Yeah, it always comes back to I'm good because they can't get you. I keep trying to hammer that home. In so many ways, guys, they can't get you if you're good. With it being the Christmas season, I'll even go out and say on a religious level, if you have a strong, solid philosophy underneath you, if you just have that strength in that rock in that background, then the other things of this world can't get you either. And so being in the state of I'm good is something that you work on over a lifetime. Some people get there earlier than others. Some people never get there at all. But the goal is to try to get there, to be good in so many ways. You guys can throw your pamphlets or whatever at me. I'm good. I don't want to hear about it. Or you guys, you can, blast your warmongering news at me all the time to try to put me in a constant state of fear. But I'm not, because I'm good. I know what this is. See, it's really comes down to that. Just the state of I'm good really permeates in so many other aspects of our lives as well. Phineas Hinshaw retracted something there. I wish I had caught that in time. That looked interesting. Mhm. Yeah, I think that's pretty much. Phineas says, "I'm at the end of my guitar midlife crisis." Lol. Yeah, that occurs. So spending his stuff for now. Just have to make music. Like, yeah, you held your bottom to make music. Let's get to that aspect of it. We're good now. We got what we need. Something to think about. Now, if I'm correct, today is the 21st, so that makes Monday the 22nd, Tuesday the 23rd, and Wednesday the 24th, Christmas Eve. So it looks like we're going to be doing a Christmas Eve live, guys, coming up here on Wednesday the 24th. I will be here live. So look forward to our Christmas Eve live stream that we're going to be doing. Um Would love to hear down below in the comments section if you have any ideas or thoughts about things that you'd like me to discuss for that Christmas tree live coming up. There's a few days between now and then for you to do so. So if you could do that, I'd appreciate it. Uh, Christmas to all. Yeah. Yeah. I hope that you guys can be there for that. Certainly, I would be happy to see you so I can say Merry Christmas Eve to you guys. So I'll see you on Christmas Eve on the 24th. Same bad time, same bad channel. Till then, you guys be good and take care. Thank you so much for joining in this live stream. Be good. See you guys. Have a Merry Christmas.